teammates Ike and Rossi have already made their way into our final Fabulous Four. And now we've got a battle of the reigning DreamHack champions. It's going to be Shoop, the DreamHack Austin 2017 champion, up against Dr. Drjikininki, the DreamHack Atlanta champion. Bringing you the action, myself and Noxious. Noxious, do you know these guys personally?
I know you do. I've spoken to them quite a bit. They're extremely nice guys. Shoop, again, one of the players that really very few people had heard of before his breakthrough performance. He said back when he ended up getting the first place in DreamHack the first time around, he'd put a lot of preparation. And he said that this time around, he'd put just as much, if not more. And the results are showing.
Yeah, these guys are really good friends. They're practice partners. They hang out in that same practice group alongside Ray C, Hot Meowth, and Sidonia, for instance. And I went out to dinner with both of them last night, and over some friendly banter, Dr. J just had one thing to say, and it was, Shoop, you better not 1, 2, 3, 4 me with that Paladin.
Well, that's pretty much what the deck is designed to do, so he's going to have to dodge a bullet there. I feel like Shoop's lineup in general, I think Rage brought a similar lineup.
They have the identical lineups. Shoop and Rage had the exact same lineups and deck.
And if you look at the results, it's very polarized because Rage had a much rougher time of it than Shoop did. So it might just be a matter of lining up with the other lineups that work well. The reason I think this is such a big difference in results is because players coming into this event seem to have extremely varied arrays of strategies. So depending on your opponents, that lineup may or may not function. Shoop ended up getting the right matchups, the one that he was predicting to find, that Rage as well predicted to find, and he managed to make it this far because of that preparation. Yeah,
he has some really interesting deck choices. They worked out certainly much better for him than they did for Rage. Shoop, the DreamHack Austin champion, still teamless, but is one of those functioning members of society that we love to see playing Hearthstone today. Dr. Drjikininki just joined onto Space Station Gaming. He's been repping them over the course of the last couple of days. I know he's very excited about that. And he is the DreamHack Atlanta champion as well as the Winter Americas champion for HCT this year. He is just starting to find that tipping point where he can make this into a career. He's still a student, half-time, but he wants to go into esports. So for Dr. J, getting that second DreamHack win could really solidify the career. And for Shoop, maybe it could be a kickstart. He's very well respected, incredibly intelligent, but just doesn't have the incentive quite yet to make his life entirely about esports. So for both of these guys, the notoriety, the respect, the title would be huge. We've got our picks and bans. Let's check out what these players have brought to the table. Here we can see Shoop getting ready, stoic as ever. It's going to be Shoop on the Paladin, Mage, Priest with the Rogue Band, and Dr. J has the Druid, Priest, and Warlock with the Rogue Band yet again. These mutual Rogue Bands seem to be increasing in popularity as the tournament has gone on, and most of the players that found great success in this tournament did predict that Rogue would be an absolute killer in LHS, decided to ban it away.
Yeah, I would say that this is not really unexpected at this point. The further we go, the more Rogue Bands it seems we have been noticing, and the big reason for that, of course, is that Rogue's excellent at fighting off not only tempo decks, but also some of the established quote-unquote control decks. Rizalka's Priest, extremely difficult to beat, as well as the Druid deck. So Rogue just sort of hits everything. There's no deck that is going to be immune to it in your lineup, so you sort of have to eliminate it, make sure it doesn't sweep, because I believe it's the deck, or the class at the very least, that has swept the most in the event during the Swiss, as well as going to the top 16.
Yeah, Rogue and Warlock have really proven themselves to be formidable in this tournament. We all expected Rogue would be one of the top 3 classes to bring, but Warlock, I think, was that fourth sort of outlier. You would expect a lot of Shaman, you would expect maybe a little bit of Mage. We saw some Warrior, Amnesiac, for instance, brought Pirate Warrior, but Paladin and Warlock have been, I would say, the 2 most successful fourth deck classes in the tournament.
Yeah, and I think one of the big surprises was the fact that we expected some Warlock, but historically, since the new quote-unquote metagame, it feels like we've been seeing more Control Warlock and much less of the Zoo.
Yeah.
And it turns out that you can bring Control Warlock and do well, but Zoo has also been tearing apart other people's lineups. And it falls in the same category of the Murloc Paladin, the Rogue, that Zoo approach, just getting the tempo out there onto the board and taking a game on the back of a snowball with some very solid late game choices, like Bone Mare, of course, Lich King also making its way to some lists, and the refill with Blood Reaver Gul'dan in certain matchups.
And Dr. J's Warlock in particular is unique. He has a Karen Bloodhoof. He has the Lich King at the top end. It is a bit unusual. We'll see if this ingenuity will pay off, or will it be Shoop defending his title? Let's get right into game number 1. DreamHack Champion versus DreamHack Champion. And it's going to be Priest v. Priest. Nothing big about this. It's just 30 individual cards.
Yeah, it can do some big things, but there's nothing in it with obsidian statues that are going to completely crush you with Barnes shenanigans. So this matchup boils down to one overarching fact. Who gets Shadow Reaper plus Raza first? So this is going to, of course, revolve heavily around card draw. And at the moment, while Dr. Drjikininki is an opening hand, you know, with Kazakis was fantastic, the card draw really is on Shoop's side. He's got the Acolyte of Pain.
The turn 2 hero power and emote.
But then thank you.
He is truly a master of the class.
I mean, if you've been playing Priest long enough, it's second habit. You cannot. You just can't not do it.
Our Hearthstone forefathers before us told us of the power of the hero power and emote. We would be fools not to continue this long-standing tradition.
I'll be honest with you. I feel sort of ambivalent about Tyrande because I played Tyrande a little bit, and it's not the same. The Fury of the Light, or whatever it is she says, it's just not. What is that?
The light shall burn you straight up. Let's not get fancy.
You can't burn me with that line.
Go with it. But you're absolutely right. The player that generally gets Raza Anduin online first will win the game. In some cases, like we saw with Hot Meowth in the last series, Anduin can be your 30th card. It only happens, you know, approximately 1 in 30 times, but if you add Raza in there as well as being that catalyst, then you do have a slightly higher percentage of just bricking. And in this matchup where it is so incredibly vital that you find those combo pieces, that is not a situation you want to be in.
Yeah, Shoop is running the Auctioneer list. As we can see here, the Gadgetzan Auctioneer being present in the hand. I don't know if Drjikininki is the player that played both Lyra and Auctioneer, but we have seen some of that in the tournament. There's nothing inherently wrong with Lyra in the matchup. It's always been powerful in the mirror match. The big drawback, though, is that if you're running Lyra and Auctioneer, yes, you're opening up an avenue to win with Lyra, but you're also spending spells getting the kind of the card generation out of her. So you really don't get the Auctioneer value quite the same way.
Yeah, I think that Lyra has generally started to fall out of favor. Gadgetzan Auctioneer just seems to be the more consistent method of finding your natural win conditions. So while some Lyra cards can get you out of situations that you would not otherwise be able to win, Gadgetzan just gets you towards your ultimate strategy, helps you find those combo pieces if they are in the bottom few cards of your deck.
And Shoop here, of course, opting to take the 1 mana potion with Kazakis. This seems to be the trend with the card, especially when you've got the Auctioneer at the ready, getting you additional card draw off of it. There's a lot of very cheap spells in Shoop's hand. Some pieces you'll keep for the late game. No easy way really to get on board and draw right away. He has to play the control game a little bit longer while Dr. Drjikininki is trying to establish a foothold on the board. And this foothold sometimes gets enough damage in that you can win without the full combo later in the game.
Yeah, sometimes it just gets you there. Every little bit of chip damage in the early turns can really, really add up. But so far, both of these guys are failing to find the combo pieces that they need. We've got Kazakis. Shoop has that 1 mana potion lined up for the Velen turns going forward, but no Raza, no Anduin just yet. And we saw with Shoop yesterday versus MTG Kid, when neither of the decks get the cards that they need, this matchup can be very slow, rather uneventful.
Yeah, and I mean, uneventful is a thing, but you saw here Dr. Drjikininki, instead of just playing Thalnos and let it sit there and give you the card draw later on, opted to guarantee that it would die as soon as possible by cycling one of the cards that you could argue has some value, killing Priest of the Feast, killing Akanai Soul Priest, killing Lyra potentially, but it isn't in the deck for Shoop. So it can find value, but this isn't exactly the matchup where Shadow Word Pain will net you anything.
Yeah.
So using it on your own Thalnos to accelerate the pace at which you're likely to find Raza or Shadow Reaper makes a lot of sense.
The card draw is so valuable, and the potential that your opponent has Potion of Madness and then their own Shadow Word Pain or Holy Smite to kill off your Thalnos, giving them the card draw is so detrimental that you might as well just go ahead and expend the resources to ensure that you profit from that Thalnos.
Yeah, and it really goes to show just how reliant the deck is on those combo pieces. It's one of the purest forms of combo decks that we've seen in a long time that needs to assemble very, very specific cards together to get the combo going. I guess Quest Mage would come in as the
probably the
current meta.
Yeah, that is the guaranteed OTK. There are ways to get out of range of this Priest combo, but generally Velen, Mind Blast, Holy Smite plus a 0-mana spell is going to be 32. That is enough to kill most everything.
And it's interesting because DreamHack Montreal, Muzzy, was running, I would say, the most all-in on the combo deck that we had at the event. You know, played all the card draw, Mass Dispel, No Mission Inventor, name it. It was in there just to get to that Velen, Mind Blast, Holy Smite burst. While that wasn't the first time we'd seen it, I'd say that after that event, I started seeing more and more of those combo-heavy Razakis Priests on the ladder as well as in tournament settings.
The deck has changed quite a bit in just the last month and a half. Before that, we'd seen people going very much all in, running so much as Prophet Velen with Mirage Caller and Snow Flipper Penguin to get that guaranteed OTK. But once they figured out, okay, with these 4 or 5 cards, I can guarantee that I have enough to kill anything that can't armor over 30, then you can start to weed out some of those less useful cards, some of the more situational cards. And we've settled on a build that I think is really good in a vacuum. Couple of cards that you can switch in and out. Gadgetzin versus Lyra. We saw Saiyan with a Master Spell, you know, whatever. You have some preference, you can switch things up a bit. But the shell for the deck is largely very similar between every player.
Yeah, and it's really down to the, you know, the Akanai Soul Priest with Circle of Healing making its way in, which also opened up room for the Wild Pyromancer suddenly finding some combo pieces. So I think the important part to remember about the deck is that it's not so much that it's got one combo that kills you at the end, as much as it is that it's got all these cards that can be interacted with in a different manner that all serve the deck's game plan, that is. So it's unidimensional in that it always kills you the same way, but the way to get there is a little bit more of a maze.
The road is a little bit different every time, but you ultimately end up at the same result. And Shoop is going to be the first player to go off with that Gadgetzin Auctioneer, dig deeper into his deck and try to find those combo pieces, but he is still whiffing on Raza and Anduin. Has the Kazakus Potion set up, has the Velen in hand, so the damage is there. Everything he needs to get that kill once Raza and Anduin are active is currently in hand. Now, it's just about finding those 2 cards. Dr. J, on the other hand, has the Anduin, still missing the Raza, doesn't have the Velen or the burst potential right now to get that 1-turn kill.
Yeah, Shoop, though, with this Priest of the Feast is going to present a punish to the use of the Shadow Word Pain we spoke of earlier. It was used by Dr. Drjikininki on this Blood Mage Thalnos for good reason.
Yep.
But as of right now, this Priest of the Feast is sort of uncontested on the board.
And we were saying before, a little bit of chip damage can matter a lot.
And Shoop is going to get himself a bit more board presence as well as a card draw, more importantly. Going forward, another Blood Mage Thalnos 4 card draw as well. How many cards does he have? He's got 9. He has to dump something. Maybe Spirit Lash gets used here just to cycle.
I believe you're ripping Spirit Lash right now. You still don't risk overdrawing here. And with the Radiant Elemental in hand, Shoop now doesn't need that Kazakus Potion to ensure that he's going to have enough damage with the Velen because he's got Radiant alongside Binding Heal with that Mind Blast and that Holy Smite.
Dr. Drjikininki's Anduin comes online, so he's going to start pinging away over the next few turns. Now, at this point in the game, very often you're tempted to keep playing the board control game against the Priest of the Feast. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, you have to get rid of him, otherwise you just get your entire damage output negated. So this will have to be dealt with in some way sooner rather than later. But Shoop is completely bricking on the combo pieces. He's drawn a lot this game, and I mean a lot.
He has. He's had repetitive Thalnos, he had that Gadgetzin turn. Still not enough to find the 2 key cards that he needs. And Dr. J has this Anduin active, but with the Priest of the Feast on board for Shoop, that means that the damage that J shoots to face will largely be negated. So Dr. J will have to commit at least 3 hero powers, perhaps 4 if Shoop decides to commit a heal to the Priest of the Feast, just to get it off of the board so that he can then start getting some chip damage in.
And just how desperate is he?
There you go.
To find the pieces. When you're Holy Smiting, your loot hoarder just to find this. Now, there's an obvious line that was, you play Northshire Cleric, you heal up your Priest of the Feast. The issue with that, of course, is, well, suddenly you're exposed to overdrawing, and you're also not extracting anything meaningful out of it. Like, there's no guarantee that the combo pieces will be at the bottom of the deck.
Dr. Drjikininki also plays Circle of Healing. So if Shoop were to commit that Northshire Cleric, we could have a situation on our hands much like what we saw between Orange and Surrender in HCT Finals.
Yeah, Orange went for the all-in. It didn't work out, but it's just one card away from working out very often. And when none of the cards in your hand are those combo pieces, the risk is much higher. Dr. J will keep digging, looking for that Raza.
The pint size plus horror can clear off the Priest of the Feast if he really wants to just get that out of here.
Frankly, I don't mind it. I don't know how necessary it is, however.
You're looking at 3 damage per turn. You're not too worried right now.
It'll
go ahead and commit 2 hero powers to the Priest of the Feast this turn. One of them will stick because Shoop can only heal for 2. But Shoop now, Raza and Anduin back to back.
He was behind, and now he's ahead. This is a very quick turn of events, but Dr. J could pick up his own Raza.
He could.
Off the draw.
He definitely could. Shoop still needs 2 turns to be able to start getting that damage online. 3 turns before he can actually kill Dr. J.
So this is interesting here. So you played the most expensive of the 2 pieces first in this case. Number 1, it lets you kill the Wild Pyromancer without damaging your Priest of the Feast further, thus also taking out the possibility of combo plays being made with Acolyte of Pain so that they can dig for that Raza the Chained. And this is going to be a quote-unquote fair game.
This is the scenario that sometimes you do see one player gets it online first, but the other player right after. It makes some really interesting dynamic happen.
Well, one player has Velen and the other has not. One has 36 health and the other has 29.
Yeah.
So as it stands, the chip damage done by Priest of the Feast and the threat it's been representing has shifted some of the burn away from Shoop's face, redirected it to the minion, and now he finds himself able to initiate a bit more pressure, perhaps.
Dr. Drjikininki has the board, however, so if Shoop wants to get that Raza down this turn and start dealing some damage, he may have to get Dr. J's Raza off the board before he can actually start targeting face. He does have Dragonfire in hand. That would be an easy clear, but you want to get that Raza active as soon as possible.
Yeah, there's also the fact that Binding Heal for both players can help them salvage some of the health that they lose in the initial stages of this, I guess, just the shooting at each other's faces.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Shoop knows, Dr. J has Velen in hand. Shoop doesn't know any different. So in Shoop's eyes, if Jay has Velen in hand and has the combo,
he's dead.
He's dead.
And there's been a lot of digging for both players, and no Holy Smites for either of them, though. Shoop has used up his own on Loot Hoarder just to dig, so it's down to the 0-cost spells played with the Radiant Elemental that will carry him forward. And he is yet going to opt, of course, to get as much card draw as he can, stealing the Acolyte of Pain in the process. Digging for just any spell. I think he's got a Shadow Word Death left in there with another Circle of Healing.
Maybe even more importantly, deny the draw to Dr. J. If Dr. J doesn't have Velen yet, you certainly don't want to give it to him.
Yep, Shadow Word Death for Dr. J can handle the Raza, and he can start shooting at the enemy face. Set up a lethal. There's Mind Blast in hand for him, so he can dig for one with Shadow Visions and maybe get a second copy on the draw. So it's really down to the current hand texture carrying him forward. And so, despite the fact that Dr. J got the Anduin first, Shoop quickly caught up, but was also sitting on Velen for the entirety of the game. That just gives him the lead here.
Shoop got all 4 pieces before Dr. J was able to, and Shoop is going to be able to go off this next turn. Is there anything that Dr. J can do to prevent it?
Without Velen, I mean, he's just got to hope.
Shoop doesn't have Smite or the Kazakus potion in hand, but with the Mind Blast, Circle of Healing, and the Binding Heal,
it should be sufficient. He's got the Mind Blast, the Binding Heal, the Circle of Healing, another Circle of Healing in the deck as well. That's something to consider. And there is definitely not enough damage for Dr. Drjikininki here.
Shadow Word Horror blowing up his own board just to get that extra 2 in because Dr. J knows he doesn't have Velen, but maybe he can piece together the damage next turn with just the cards he has in hand. So Shoop needs to deal 30 this turn.
Dr. J was awfully close to it, though.
He sure was, and Shoop knows it's go time.
So close to the lethal there for Dr. J. It just hurts to see this.
I know.
When you're so close to getting the kill, one card off.
He was one turn away or one card off, but Shoop just has it. 10 damage from the Mind Blast, 4 after, then the Binding Heal for another 4.
All right, can Dr. J recover from this?
Nah, he's just dead.
No, but I mean just mentally.
In the next game?
Yes.
Perhaps. This game, not a chance.
But just in terms of the morale, I feel like this is just so backbreaking. You get Shadow Reaper first, you're feeling good about yourself. Next thing you know, the opponent catches up in 1, 2, 3.
This matchup can be really morally degrading, especially if you are so close. But Dr. Drjikininki is not the kind of guy to get psyched out, right? He has lots of tournament experience. He knows what it's like to be up on that stage, to be playing in front of a crowd, to be playing for very high stakes. So I would not expect him under any circumstances to get psyched out after just game 1. Even yesterday when he was playing against, I believe it was Count Waffles. Count Waffles had some incredible draws and pulled off a win with his Warlock that, for all intents and purposes, he should not have been able to any other draw, and he would have lost that game. But even still, Dr. J didn't let it psych him out. He came back, and he won that set 3-2.
Yeah, that's true. I think one of the things too going forward is that there's a Druid in Dr. J's lineup, I believe. And so that Druid is able to fight off against the Priest quite effectively, almost no matter what. So it's not really that bad going forward. He can probably tie up the series.
Yeah.
One of the things, though, is that getting the first win in the last hero standing format usually means you get to counter the counters. So after you're able to get the Priest, sometimes there's a Hail Mary chance that you just get your win against the counter matchup. And if you don't, well, you're still the one dictating how the trades happen.
Yeah, generally, if everything lines up as it should, the person that gets the first win in LHS will end up winning the set, likely 3-2. So for Shoop, that does give him a distinct advantage here. But Dr. J has a Warlock deck with a bit of a higher curve than you would expect to see from an average Zoo build right now. He does not run Blood Fury potions. He does have Crystal Weaver, doesn't have Blood Imp. He's got Karen Bloodhoof and Lich King at that top end. So it's a little bit heavier, a little bit better against Priest. There's a chance maybe Dr. J wants to bring out that Warlock and just try to get that online now. So he has 2 good options against Shoop's Priest, I believe.
Yeah, those 2 decks are not really weak to Priest. I feel like he was targeting those types of lineups. He just happens not to be matched against one of those slower lineups. Instead, it's all Shoop's aggression coming down. There's also a really unique deck in Shoop's lineup that we haven't really seen yet. It's rife with surprises, so we won't spoil it, but that deck has the potential to just upset anything, literally anything that Dr. J put into practice.
It is one that we have not seen him yet play.
It's the
one that we may see him play.
I would love to see him play that deck this series. Well, that means he might be in a bad spot if he ends up having to resort to it. But it's definitely interesting. Plus, it's also not doing too bad against Druid from what I've heard.
No, it is quite good against Druid. It's a combo deck. It's a deck that Shoop should be able to pilot very well. Shoop, as a whole, has been playing very, very well in this tournament. And there is the man himself. He has returned. We're going to get into game number 2 very shortly. So Dr. J needs to fight back against this Priest with either the Druid or the Warlock. Both decks in good position to be able to take a win off of the slower Razakus Priest build. Which one does Dr. J think is going to be his best bet? We're going to find out. He had a lot of luck with that Warlock yesterday. Druid itself is just incredibly strong. We saw Rosti take down his opponent in his first series of today with that Jade Druid.
Yeah, it's lost some power level. You could say it spikes less, but it's just consistent still across the board. The big innovation for the Druid builds has been the Mark of the Lotus inclusion. It doesn't seem like much, but Mark of the Lotus lets you fight off against tempo decks by creating a wave of minions with Spreading Plague, buffing them up to 2/6s. So you sort of get the strong Shell Scavenger in a way. Instead of being a 4-mana 2/3 that buffs all your taunts, you simply use Mark of the Lotus for that purpose, and you can get yourself a very, very strong counter push. So the deck has recovered from its initial limping, you could say, after the initial nerfs.
It didn't run out of the gate. It sort of walked a little bit slowly, but it has found its spot back in the meta. And Dr. J is going to be countering Shoop's Priest with his Jade Druid. Seems like the obvious choice, but the Warlock was also a valid option. Let's see if Shoop can work some of his magic like he did yesterday against MTG Kid. He had 2 Priest games in a row where he opened Raza Anduin. Can he make it happen?
Yeah, it might happen again. It takes a little bit more effort in the matchup, but it can definitely occur. Now, Dr. J is throwing back the Jade Spirit, not because he doesn't want Jades, but because the Myra Keeper curves naturally into Aya Blackpaw. So you just Myra Keeper for mana, you get that 6-drop online, you're good to go. There's an argument to be made if you don't find more ramp to just coin out the Keeper, play Jade Spirit afterwards, and then follow up with Aya Blackpaw. That not only ramps up your mana, but also ramps up the size of your Jades, and you need to get them to 5/5s and 6/6s as soon as possible in this matchup. Ideally, you'd have that happen before turn 7.
As soon as you can get them out of Dragonfire range, then you usually see Anduin come down, wipe that board. It's the board after that that will win Dr. J the game.
And the Dragonfire Potion for Shoop is present at the moment. Not much card draw, but he's got decent control tools. They can be combined. Akanai is missing the Circle of Healing. That's something that he'll be looking for, definitely. And there's also the Pint-Sized Potion, waiting for the Shadow Word Horror for the early mid-game clear. So he's very close to getting that clear together.
But Dr. J is drawing pretty hot as well. This is a fantastic hand. Lots of Jade support. Good ramp and good draw even with that Nourish. If you don't need the ramp, you just need some more draw. Nourish does not solely need to be used to get you to Ultimate Infestation. Now against Priest, you've got some more time. You can elect Nourish for cards.
Yeah, and Dr. J has a lot of options next turn. The obvious one is just, you know, coin out the Aya Blackpaw. It does play into certain things, but nothing that should punish you too much. Shoop, of course, fighting back on the board. I mean, that's what you have to do. You can combine your removal with minion presence to pop minion like Aya Blackpaw, start damaging a Jade Behemoth, and then clean up the board with your follow-up damage-based removal.
Jade's growing very quickly for Dr. J, going to be sitting at 5/5 after this Aya Blackpaw dies. Kazaka's pickup for Shoop is very nice, but the 1-mana potion doesn't have a polymorph option.
He might take it just for the potential to pop Aya Blackpaw this turn. That might be worth something. Because you do have the Dragonfire Potion, Shadow Word Horror. There's also a good argument for that. If you go for Pint-Sized Potion, Shadow Word Horror, you're able to at least kill the Aya. It just doesn't feel like wide enough a board to justify it.
All right, he's going for the 5.
Yeah.
You can take Fellbloom here and get the guaranteed clear on the Jades, at least the one that spawns from Aya.
He's got
no board building tools, though.
Yeah, nothing to resurrect minions. But he can clear. And he's got damage out with the potion. This is really the kind of potion you take when you're looking for a second Dragonfire. Like a makeshift Dragonfire potion.
It's a removal potion. Use this first, Dragonfire after. Or even just use this to remove one big threat. But Dr. J still pretty in control.
Ah, that's rough, though. This is a tough turn. A part of me says, let's go, Mark of the Lotus. But then I'm saying, okay, we're going into Dragonfire turn. I'm not sure how much I like that. So the other part is ramp up. Do I use Nourish for that? Probably not. I have no card draw. So you have to go for sort of the in-between where you develop a little bit of a board and you get the ramp at the same time. And that's the Myra Keeper, exactly. Sort of weak, but it sets up nicely for the following turns.
And the trade with Aya here is a nod to a 5-mana Kazaka's Potion. With that polymorph option, Shoop could have gotten the clean trade from the Akanai into the Myra Keeper, then you polymorph Aya, and Dr. J's Jades are going to be that much smaller. So he's more worried about ramping those Jades quickly than he is about 5 mostly inconsequential damage right now. Jade Druid isn't just going to beat down the Priest usually. It'll get one overwhelming board state, and that will just win the game.
Yeah, and Dr. J not really finding, the armor gain necessarily at the moment. He's not running Earthen Scales in that deck. So he's relying on Malfurion to get him out of range, assuming that the combo pieces are assembled by Shoop in time. Not the case right now. There's no Shadow Reaper to clean up a bunch of really large Jade minions. So it's a little bit tricky. Forcing the trades. He really wants to put his opponent down to a point where he can kill him if he gets the combo pieces. Understandable.
Dr. J has a game plan in mind. He wants to be at 10 mana and he wants to be there quickly. rightfully so. You've got a Kun the Forgotten King in hand. You can combo that with even just the Nourish in hand to draw some cards. You don't need Ultimate Infestation because you still have other means to finding resources.
Yeah, but you're opening up that option at the very least. If your next draw happens to be an Infestation, you'll be more than happy.
Oh, yeah, you will.
And Dr. J, is he running Medivh in the build? I don't know that he's running it. It would surprise me. I've seen it occasionally.
I would tend to believe he is.
Okay.
With the Kun, I think this is going to be more of an anti-control, anti-priest build, and that would make a lot of sense looking at his Warlock deck as well.
Yeah, the general strategy seems to be to target control decks, expecting those control-heavy lineups. Shoop not going to opt for the Pint-sized Potion with Shadow Word Horror. Is going to choose the Dragon Fire Potion, a bit more mana efficient in this case. The Jays are starting to get out of range of that Shadow Word Horror, though. Now, there are 6s, so they no longer are affected by the combo.
Yeah, a lot of the AoE from Priest operates largely in the same fashion against the same size minions from Dr. J. So Shoop doesn't have clean clear on anything once the Jades get bigger, except for Shadow Reaper Anduin. So he's going to need a very nicely timed Anduin just to get a board clear, and then from there he can amass his combo, but he still hasn't found Raza, hasn't found Anduin, and Dr. J has found Jades.
Yeah, and Dr. J is also sitting on 2 cards that in the matchup have 0 or nearly 0 value,
That's
being
true.
the Spreading Plagues. So they're going to be hard to find value with. Very often what you're able to do is when there are, say, a few 1-1s like Blood Mage Thalnos, Loot Hoarder with Novice Engineer, you can get a few Spreading Plagues and that's good. With the Acolyte of Pain, it's a bit more difficult because that guy can draw cards off of the one attack. You can't afford giving the Priest extra card draw.
Shoop going into his 9-mana turn, still no Raza, no Anduin. Last game he found them back to back.
Yeah, maybe he can repeat the feat this time around. Looks like we're gonna go for an old-fashioned clear, looking for card draw with the Acolyte primarily here. Picks up a Shadow Visions. That's another fantastic card.
Certainly one that he can make good use out of. But what's the rest of his game plan this turn? It's not straightforward.
I feel like we're just looking to play spells.
Yeah, he was contemplating healing the Wild Pyro, trying to keep it around for that additional point of damage, but...
Realizes he'd have to use an extra spell to...
Yeah, one that he didn't have until now. So the Pyro's gone. The Acolyte will draw the full 3, but Shoop is still just going to be 1 damage off, getting that 6 attack Jade off of the board.
And suddenly Spreading Plague, again, not looking too strong for Dr. J.
Yeah, he didn't have the clear there even with the Pyro because the Pyro would have activated on the Acolyte when the Shadow Word Pain happened, so this Golem was going to stick around no matter what. Shoop has cycled through the majority of his cards, so to have both Raza and Anduin in the bottom 10 again, it's really unlikely.
That's just not where... This is the worst matchup to have it happen, too.
Yeah.
Well, we have to be honest about this, too. This is a bad matchup for the Priest player in many respects. Not every time. You know, there are cases where you just blow them out, but on average, going into it blind, the Priest will likely struggle if the game goes too long, and this is sort of where we've entered. I mean, Shadow Reaper Anduin can salvage a portion of this, but a 3-6 and a 4-3, still very much around.
A Pain draw. Again, not what Shoop wants to see. He's got the Loot Hoarder for another shot. There's Gadgets, and so at least he's going to be able to get through
1 extra card.
Yeah, a lot of the remaining resources left in his deck. I believe he's sitting at around 10, but he only had 2 spells off of that Shadow Visions.
Pint-sized Potion can be used just for the buff. He can even use Potion of Madness with it, fortunately. So he's going to be able to trade off the Spellbreaker.
There's
and
Raza.
Cycle. So he should be, honestly, he should be getting Shadow Reaper in the next 3 to 4 cards at the very least. There's so few cards left in the deck. Look at the health total, though.
He's sitting at 20.
Hurts.
And Dr. J has 7 this turn.
And Dr. J not finding the pressure. He needs to get those Jade Idols right now. That's Medivh.
That's Malfurion. Huh. He's going to feel pressured to trade into the Gadget, which means that 7 damage won't be going to Shoop's face, I believe.
Yeah, you also have to be worried about Shadow Reaper, because if he Shadow Reapers and the Gadget Sand stays alive, then you lose your Jade, so might as well extract some value from it while you still can, rather than push damage to the face.
Yeah.
You're winning the long game if things go right. And this is also brilliantly setting up for the Malfurion, the Pestilent. If Frandrel isn't silenced, which at this point, since you've seen Holy Smite, and you've seen a lot of cheap spells, means that the Priest is out of OTK potential, you might want to keep the silence. You might get that Malfurion to give you the full minion package.
Things haven't gone exactly correct for Dr. J either, though. Not finding that ultimate infestation means that just in general, his hand size has been smaller. His board hasn't been nearly as large as it could have been. But this turn could be that turning point. If Shoop doesn't have Shadow Reaper Anduin, the Jades may just be too much for him to deal with.
Yeah, and also Dr. J is able to start armoring up here, and with the one Holy Smite gone, that's a lot of burn potential gone. That's 8 damage, so he'll have to substitute it with some other spell, but with Silence left, no Circle of Healing, there's one Binding Heal, I believe, that's already been used in cycle.
Dr. J has 17 damage here, putting Shoop down to just 5. If Shadow Reaper comes down, he still gets to keep 8 on board.
And that's
force Shoop to trade off. No, it's not, but it's perhaps a means to find it.
At the very least, the Shadow Word Horror can do a lot of work onto this board. That's a big heal.
Certainly is. Shoop's going to make it through this turn. Find the clear on that 9/4 Golem.
Bit awkward as the Shadow Word Horror does not leave him with anything aside from the 5/7. The 5/6, that is.
Yeah. He could have actually had a full clear had the Shadow Word Horror not killed his own minions, but unfortunately that's not how the card works. So Dr. J will be left with the Fandral.
Now Dr. J is getting the Jades back online. Again, Shadow Reaper is the threat here. And that is the one thing that can salvage this game for your opponent. So you have to figure out how you want to go about this. But you've seen so many cheap spells used. How likely is it that he can put 30 damage together?
I don't think wants to go for the full Jades this turn, because then his entire board is decimated by Shadow Reaper, and the only follow-up he has is Medivh the Guardian. So electing to play the Medivh first, then attack, wants the extra damage just from the Ashbringer. It's likely he won't need the minion generation from cards like Ultimate Infestation, because the Jade Spirit and the Jade Blossom, I think, just give him an 8/8 and a 9/9 now.
And Shoop just found the Priest of the Feast. No Shadow Reaper once again.
That is heartbreaking for Shoop, but it's great news for Dr. J. He's going to tie up this series 1-1.
Yeah, can't boot the J. Dr. J is just kind of picking up a deck here that's also favored to win. So there's no surprise. Tying out the series was sort of what we expected going to the second game. But now it's down to what Shoop decides to pick. He's got a Murloc Paladin as well as a Mage. Game number 3, that is. Coming right up. All right, so we'll have to figure out what Shoop is going to go with. What do you think is going to choose between the Mage or the Paladin?
So the Paladin already is very aggressive, can definitely get on board early and just pressure the Druid out of the game. But this Mage is something special.
I really want to see the Mage. No matter what, I'm hoping we get to at least see the Mage. It may not be the best matchup for it. Usually that's where you want to play something like this, but it's, I think, a little bit better against the big type decks in the Jades. Murloc is more likely to blow out a Jade Druid than the usual list. Also, one thing to note is that Shoop is running 2 copies of Spiker Steed. Now this might seem like a
crazy.
A boring statement, but a lot of decks, that is, have sort of gone down to 1 copy. Some of them have even gone and transitioned into the double Cold Light Seer.
Yeah.
So you end up cutting some of your buffs in favor of the early Murloc package with the Grimscale Chum, sometimes double Bone Mare instead of the double Spiker Steed. In this case, the Spiker Steed is going to put a lot of, I guess, trouble in Dr. Drjikininki's face, because there's
a lot of
really
stats.
no way that you just can't stop that as a druid. It's notoriously bad at handling those big minions.
It's just a lot of stats.
Yeah.
Druid doesn't have any single target removal. Jay's got a copy of Spellbreaker, but that means that second steed is very likely to land. And Shoop has 2 copies of Crazed Alchemist in this deck, which I actually talked to Rage a little bit about this build, and he said, yeah, I mean, obviously, the worst thing for this deck is Doomsayer, so you put in 2 copies of Crazed Alchemist, but also with the 2 copies of Spike Ridge Steed, sometimes you just have Sneaky Lethal.
Yeah, you just come out of nowhere with that minion you buff. So let's say you just pick up something like a Cobalt Scalebane, right? You buff it up by 6 health, it's 11, switch it over, hit the face, and that's just the kill.
Pyroblast him.
Yep. So Crazed Alchemist has been used in aggro decks just for the... Remember, I think the first time the Alchemist was used in aggro decks as an extremely potent card was in Zoo with the Darkshire Councilman. This is sort of the same thing in this case.
Shoop off to a very speedy start. But Dr. J as well, getting closer and closer to that ultimate payoff turn, turn 10 with Ultimate Infestation. And Shoop has a couple of options this turn. He can coin into that Cobalt Scalebane, go for pressure that way. Can play the Blessing of Kings, try to keep this board around a little bit longer. I don't think you want to coin Finja. There's nothing on board that you can guaranteed get the kill with the Finja, but in that same vein, you've got the Kings in hand, so anything that Jay plays, you will be able to remove.
Yeah, the coin 5 into 5, say Cobalt Scalebane after the Finja or the other way around, one of the big upsides of getting Finja out now is that, well, if Jade wants to win the matchup, they have to get on board. There's no question. So if they do get on board, then your Finja can take the kill with the Kings, and that transitions nicely into the turn 7 coming right up, where you'll be able to get the Bone Mare as well. So there's a really big argument in favor of this. The big drawback of going for heavy buffs here is that if your minion gets removed due to low health, because of the Spellbreaker copy that's in the deck, you really just lost a lot of tempo. So waiting for buffs, I think, is just correct.
Isn't looking good for Dr. J. You can choose to choose to silence that War Leader. Cobalt Scalebane still activates. Silence the Scalebane, staring down to 6-3.
I think you're ramping up. I think you're just, you can't let that go. You have to get that Infestation out on the board.
Yep. It's your only out here. That's your saving grace, and he is still going to be 1 turn away. No Innervate in the deck. Coinervate, I guess.
Coinervate.
We could say.
That's a nice name.
Or Innervate.
Well, if Rogues play it and Druids play it, surely everybody would try to coin. I'd play it in my Razaka's Priest.
I would too. But Shoop does not have to get rid of anything on this board if he doesn't want to. And the Cold Light now in hand means that that Finja is even more enticing.
Yeah. I think this is precisely why you'd like to play it. Maybe you don't... Well, I think you have to take the trade, right? There's no answer in Dr. J's deck. He's not running anything like Starfall. So any answer would come in the form of double swipe, swipe wrath. You know, Malfurion the Pestilent, that would also be backbreaking, but otherwise Finja seems to me like it's just well positioned. It's there to receive the Blessing of Kings, translate into the Bone Mare turn very nicely. This line of play just seems extremely appropriate.
He could go very, very aggressive. That's what he's gonna do.
And that's going to be a buff.
Even lands on the Finja. Dr. J is still 1 turn away from now Coon Ultimate Infestation. But that 1 mana will make all of the difference. He can get the kill on the War Leader, but that will just be lethal in return from Shoop with the Blessing of Kings in hand and the 12 on board.
And that's what Shoop's deck is designed to do. There's no question about it.
Dr. J said, you better not 1, 2, 3, 4 me.
And he got 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, there's no Rockpool Hunter.
That's true. You know what? It could have been worse.
It could have been much worse. Believe it or not, it could have been worse.
Dr. J should be
thankful,
counting his lucky stars that he lost this game the way that he did.
Dr. J could have been dead on 5. Instead, he's going to be dead on 6, based on the way this is going. So Shoop here, scooping up a win with the Paladin. No big surprise. Again, it was meant to target lineups such as these ones. And that is going to bring down Dr. J afterwards to his last lifeline, which is a very, control-heavy Warlock, I believe. A lot of the top end that is in the zoo. So it's able to fight off against these types of decks quite well.
Dr. J has 14 health. Shoop has exactly 14 damage. We're going to game number 4. Shoop up 2 games to 1. Champion versus champion. I hope this one goes to game 5. Shoop's Paladin is formidable.
Again, I really want to see that mage.
I know.
I keep going back to it, but I want to see the mage.
I know. We may not have to, but I don't know if Dr. J's Warlock can get on the board first. It is possible that it can fight against the Paladin.
Yeah, one of the, I guess, scary thoughts is if Shoop just wins 3-1 and then moves on to win again 3-1, that would hurt. We'd never see the mage.
Scary for us.
Yeah. Next game coming right up. All right, Shoop is going to play this Paladin deck once again. Dr. J on the Warlock. So this is the Cairn Lich King. I don't want to say standard, but a lot of people liked that list now.
It's a hybrid between the Blood Blood Fury decks and the more traditional Zoo Warlock that does have Blood Reaver Gul'dan at the top end, but isn't quite as demon-oriented.
It's very much like a mid-range Warlock.
It is.
And even the demon build reminds me a lot more of the old school mid-range demon lock with Void Callers and a lot of the strong mid-game. Some people playing Demon Heart a long time ago. The new Zoo sort of reminds
Demon
me.
Heart.
Yeah. You can't not love that card.
Forgot about that card.
It's so cool.
I pride myself on obscure card knowledge, but that one.
It was great. This is my favorite.
All right, and Shoop. All right, he finds the one. Fills out the curve.
Hits the one Murloc in his hand, which means his curve then gets a lot stronger. When you have a lot of Murlocs, different costs, sometimes you hit the one that's the highest costed. That doesn't always lead to an advantage, but here the Hydrologist alone contests the 1-mana 1/3s of the Zoo deck and also develops a secret on the following turns. That is an extremely powerful follow-up to that Grimscale Chone.
But a big aspect of this matchup is simply who gets to go first. Who gets to develop the first minion on board and react to whatever the opponent plays and then continue putting pressure on. In this case, it was Dr. J, and now he's going to have the board. He can Soulfire away. This Hydrologist picks up the Malchezaar's Imp as well, so he's not even sacrificing his overall hand size. Despicable Dreadlord would have been really nice to keep around, but you've got Crystal Weaver on 4 now. Dr. J's start has been really strong.
Yeah, and there's really no way in the Murloc Paladin deck, we know that, to catch up. It's not like the deck contains too many weapons now. This Rallying Blade doesn't really do much against this type of board. We have no Equality, Consecration combo. Oftentimes, Consecration is gone. We've seen Just Saiyan included, but it's not the most common card, especially in these very minion-heavy Paladin decks. We call them Murloc Paladin, but I feel like now with Cobalt, Scalebane, Bone Mares, we're sort of going all over the place with the types of minions we're running, and the opener dictates how you're taking over the game. And against Zoo, well, it's a very tall order.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder if would a mid-range variant of Paladin just have that little bit of edge, because they would be the one class in the format right now with that really concrete form of removal.
Yeah, there isn't much in terms of board sweeps aside from Brawl, Dragonfire Potion. It seems like Priest has taken the control game all for themselves. We see the Crazed Alchemist, a defensive line here, just being used to make sure that Voidwalker dies if it runs into a Noble Sacrifice. Dr. J will certainly read through this, however. It isn't Noble Sacrifice. No bluff is going to occur, so it's just setting up decent trades. Shoop is himself the, well, maybe not the dream start, but Zoo wants nothing more than to get trades.
Yeah, Zoo wants to control the pace of the game. It wants to buff the minions on the board, use those higher health totals from the one-cost minions to get ahead in those early turns. And normally, Paladin is really great at fighting back because they want to do the same thing. You put down the Vilefin, you put down the Tidecaller, Rockpool beside them, and they generally have the power to trade over the early minions from Dr. J. Not this time.
Yeah, it didn't happen at all, and there's been some very good trades to Dr. J choosing to remove the Murloc before the Megazord turn instead of taking out the higher statted Crazed Alchemist, knowing it would have to be traded away, so he's still up to 4 minions to 0.
I like those numbers.
Yeah, they're
Von J, I'm happy.
Fantastic. And Killiseth, of course. Oh, goodness.
Well, this worked out. Is Wind Fury just lethal? 4, 8, 10, 16, 17, 18, 19. It's close.
He's got only
not quite.
He got the Wind Fury anyway.
Everything has gone right for Dr. J in this game. Even finds stealth to make sure that this Flappy Bird gets to stick around. And I'm not seeing a way for Shoop to get out of this one. Jay smartly taking this trade. Going into turn 6, Spike Ridge Steed now is useless.
And the Doom Guard's gonna ride the steed all the way to victory as Dr. J ties up the series 2-2, going to game 5.
Demons and Dinos working together again.
I like that. I like the D&D acronym.
D&D.
Can't complain.
It's a whole different meaning here. Dr. J ties up the series 2-2, 2 2017 North American DreamHack champions. I wouldn't have it any other way, but oh man, these guys must be stressed right now.
You wanna know stress? Going with that mage deck into this matchup.
Oh yeah, we do get to see it.
I really want to see what that Shoop deck is going to bring to the table. Again, we've spoken about it. Starting the final game, it's a quest mage, but here's the twist. What is that giant doing there?
Tars would be so proud.
This is a beautiful deck, and from what I've heard on the floor, the deck does a very good job overall. It's been winning most of the games that it enters into. So it has the quest mage aspect that it's opening up a win condition in its own to just beat control decks. But because of the Arcane Giant and the Molten Giants that are in the deck, they're playing Moltens.
I mean, yeah, this deck's good. Shoop mulliganed away Waygate, draws it immediately. Dr. J just has...
You'd make a cute puppet.
He just has Keleseth on 2 into Captain on 3. Can this mage deck withstand that much aggression?
I mean, it's down to the Molten Giants finding a way onto the board. I mean, the deck does run cards like Ghastly Conjurer to slow down, Doomsayer to slow down an aggressive deck. At the moment, though, Dr. J is sitting on the Soulfire. Bringing out Patches is unfortunately not sufficient.
It's 1 damage off from getting the kill on the Doomsayer. He can Soulfire and trade the board over, life tap afterwards, but he doesn't get to develop this turn. May not blow up the board for Shoop, but it is a significant slowdown.
Yeah, and another Pirate being picked up here means Dr. J could get the mid-game Pirate push if one of the expensive cards gets discarded, and that's the Bone Mare right there, so Dr. J is still very much on curve. Shoop is going to need to find some of the better cards against this. He has...
If he can get...
The Novas...
Well, he's 1 Doomsayer down. So Nova Doom is harder to put together. He's playing Mukla, Tyrant of the Veil. Can pull that with Curator alongside the Cold Light Oracles. This is some Shoop level stuff. Yeah, and the Mukla is extremely good at enabling that Open the Waygate quest. So that's kind of the point, is it's giving you that extra... I guess, window of opportunity. Meteor being offered to Shoop here. He's got the Frost Nova as well, but no more Doomsayers to go with it, or that would be a done deal. Meteor, likely one of the better ways to clear the board, but does he have to just Hail Mary that Nova Doom is the question. The deck does not run Blizzard. It does not run Flame Strike. It has no AoE to fight this back. It's only relying on the early Doomsayers. Oh, that's a tough one. Meteor seems like the obvious pick. I mean, it deals with Doom Guards even if they come out, but ouch. This is looking... This is hurting. Pretty sketchy for Shoop. Got the Curator, which is a taunt. And Dr. J will likely discard one of the Doom Guards in hand. All right, setting himself up to get the second Doomsayer or maybe a Glyph into a removal spell. That would be fantastic for him. Lost the second Doom Guard. That will not be able to keep putting on pressure, but he's close enough to killing his opponent. Gets to put Shoop down. Yep, Shoop is... 7 health if he wants to. Okay, so what are we playing around here? What the Glyph gave? Yeah. That's essentially... Could be Flame Strike. AoE. Right. And in that case, the minions on the board would represent a full clear, aside, of course, for them Doom Guard, so you're at least able to connect with it once more. Well, that Frost Nova certainly is going to help Shoop climb back in. Extraza could come in and help as well, but... He's still way off from getting the combo. Dr. J, nice Meteor positioning. Yeah, made sure that the Doom Guard, if it got killed, would make the Captain stay alive.
Meteor will not have collateral damage as it stands. Well, Shoop can always do it with, you know, a trade now after the Frost Nova, then set up a world where he doesn't die immediately. The upside, too, is that all these costs have been reduced by the glyph, so he's going to have time to Ice Block and or Ice Barrier in the process. If he does find the Giant,
takes
that
the
should be
Simulacrum.
huge. What is he digging for at this point?
Oh, okay. At this point, it would copy the Mukla.
I don't think the Mukla is precisely where you're going, but I don't know if he's going for the quest completion. I don't know that that would do enough.
He's still only on 6 mana next turn.
Oh, he wants the Giants. The extremely cheap Giants.
Couple of free Moltons. But you need to be able to clear the board first. And he cannot.
Get some armor. That's kind of nice. That's about it. Meteor, of course, seemed like the obvious line of play, but I think he was really banking on those Giants coming out.
He's playing to win.
Yes.
Not playing to lose.
Not just to play catch-up. He's really looking at the victory condition here, which were the Giants. Not there yet, though, unfortunately for him. Those are not the Giants either.
That means the block's going to be popped.
He's got another one. There was no other way for him to generate spells aside from Babbling Book, so this is a long shot. This is an extremely long shot.
And, Dr. J can pop at 1.
He's got a natural Frost Nova, but the problem is that the Spellbreaker, that would break that Nova, and then he'd be able to push for the lethal.
He can Nova and Barrier on the same turn. Then that would probably buy him another one. But he can't AI, Nova, and Barrier on the same turn.
The deck just not finding the cards that Shoop wanted, and he also ran into one of the most brutal openers that Zeus put together this tournament.
Everything he needed. It's the power of this deck when it gets what it wants. Sometimes it's even stronger than Rogue. He could have popped at 1. I think I would have liked to see him do that, but I don't think there's anything in his deck that deals 1 damage that doesn't also deal 2, so I think it will ultimately be pretty inconsequential.
Arcane Elect looking for the Nova. That's the Hail Mary.
Babbling Book is the final chance. Counterspell will not do it. And that is the end of Shoop's tournament life, but that means that Dr. Drjikininki will be going to the semifinals, the reigning DreamHack Atlanta champion. And look at that embrace. These guys are such good friends. They respect each other so highly. I hope this doesn't hurt the friendship because Dr. J is going to be walking away with the win. Well done by Shoop, 8-1 in the Swiss. The Mage just not working out for him here, but it was a good choice to bring. It pulled its weight in the Swiss. Unfortunately, just couldn't get it done this time. Yeah,
it got him all the way up here, right? That's something to consider too, is that the danger that he was really presented with the Keleseth on 2, followed by the Pirate package just coming out, rushing. The Soulfire was there to answer the Doomsayer. Another world where the Soulfire is not present, maybe he gets away with it and suddenly is able to slow down the pace of the game. As it stands, though, there was really nothing for him to do. So the Mage, not in its best showing, but it got him all the way to the top 16, to the top 8 even. Not quite the semis, but I wonder if we're going to see something like that again coming up in the future. Yeah,
I mean, that is absolutely something to be proud of. A win at DreamHack Austin and now a top 8 performance at DreamHack Denver. Shoop has had an incredible year, but Dr. Drjikininki's DreamHack year is not over yet. He's moving on to the top 4. Now we have 3 of our 4 performance finalists in our semis. We've got 1 match remaining before we go on to those semis. And I think we've got that bracket ready, so we can probably take a look at exactly who that is going to be. Final quarterfinal of the day, Cap9 up against Monsanto. Monsanto, an HCT veteran. Cap9, we don't know much about him, but this would certainly be a great opportunity for him to make a name for himself, secure himself that final semi-final spot. This bracket is a little bit incorrect. Don't pay any attention to that Dr. J in the finals. He hasn't quite earned that yet, but he'll certainly be gunning for it if he can win his semifinal match. We're going to be right back with our final quarterfinal. It's Cap 9 versus Monsanto.